Yo, what's up, everyone? So, today I'm going over chess basics and strategies for beginners. This, I guess, lecture or video, it's not really scripted. I threw together a PowerPoint to just talk about certain themes, but I'm gonna go over really basics for beginners, how the pieces move, castling, how pawns move, promotion, and some basic strategies in terms of stages of the game, early game, middle game, end game, what to look out for in each of the stages, and I'll give some examples at the end too about um, like beginnings of the game or like starting moves. So let's get into it. So the objective in chess, you're trying to checkmate your king, checkmate your opponent's king. That means that your opponent's king can't go in, move in any squares. Really basic example here, since I have a chessboard set up, would be something like this, where the queen is defended by the king, and their king, no, sorry, the queen is defended by the bishop, and their king has no squares to move to. This is called the scholar's mate, and I'll give an example, more in-depth example in the future. Oops. Okay, so the board is just the 8x8, 8x8 board. Goes from A1 to H8. You can see here, and easy rule for setting up. Well, what's going on? Easy rule for setting up the board is I see like a lot of people get this wrong all the time, but really easy way to remember is that white is right, because this game is pretty old and and racist. That's how I think about it. So the king is on the right for white, and the king and queen always match like across the board. And think about orientation of the board as well in terms of which corner is a light square, dark square. White is always right, so the white bottom square is white as well. Pieces and points. This is just a system to help you calculate what pieces are worth in terms of capturing and trading pieces. You can capture pieces, right? Like if an opponent moves here and their piece is right here, you can take this pawn, and this pawn just like disappears off the board. You've captured that piece. Um, this point system is just to help you remember what pieces are worth in terms of trading pieces. Like for example, let's say you have this position and it's white's turn. You can trade knights. Like white's capturing black's knight, and then black is capturing back. That's essentially a trade. And because knights are worth the same, or I mean, knights are the same piece, they're worth the same. So the trade is a fair trade. Same for bishops, right? If that example, if I were to show example again, and this time we're trading a knight for a bishop, they're worth around the same value. The points aren't really exact. It's just a system to know like, oh, is this more or less a fair trade? So queens are nine. Queens are the most valuable. You only have one. Um, Rooks are 5 points each, and then the bishop and knight, which are considered minor pieces, because they're small. No, I'm just kidding. They're minor pieces, just cause, and they're worth 3 points, and each pawn is worth 1 point. Here's just an overview, something that I pulled online of how the pieces move. The queen moves in like a star shape. It can move like a horizontally, diagonally, vertically, everything. So it's the most powerful piece. Rooks can only move horizontally and vertically. So think of it as like a T. And then bishops can move diagonals. So there's only one bishop of each color for each side. So there's always going to be a dark squared bishop and a light squared bishop that control each the dark squares and light squares respectively. The knights are the most confusing in terms of movement. They move in an L shape. That's the way that I think about it. It's like 1 by 2. So it can move here, it can move here, it can move here, um, here. Oops, I'm like confusing myself. Um, here, here, here. Like it's just an L, right? You can draw the L's in any directions, like, but it's always just an L shape. Lastly, pawns. Oh, pawns are pretty confusing as well because they're pretty complicated, and I'll go into it in depth. But for the pawns, in the very first move, they can move 1 or 2 spaces, and they only capture diagonally. This is different for every other piece, right? Like if the pawns are like this and it's white's move, like I can't take like this. I'm using a board editor right now, which is why I can do whatever moves, but you can only take diagonally. For instance, like here and here, that's like a legal move. Okay, so I went over how pawns move and capture. Remember that it's only for the first move when they're still sitting in the back like this, they can move 1 or 2. But once you moved one, for this specific pawn, you can only move one in the future. Whoops. It doesn't affect other pawns, right? So if I move this one can still move 2. This can move 1, 1, 2. They're each independent. Um, what is en passant? En passant is like a special rule. So let's say that I have a pawn here. I'm white, and black is playing. Plays e5. This is a special rule where for my next turn, this turn only, I can pretend that their pawn only moved once, like a 1 square. So I can actually take this pawn. This would be gone, and that would be like a legal move. Um, it's only in this square, right? Like I'm pretending that they move 1 square, and it's only for this turn. So let's say like I do something else for this turn, like it's white to play. I do this, and then they play this. Like I cannot take this pawn en passant anymore. That it's kind of timed out, I guess. Like you can only do it like the turn immediately after it's been played. So just to recap, yeah, if I play this, if they play this like 2 pawns forward, I think of it like a ghost. Like, oh, the pawn is also here at the same time as here, only for this turn, so I can capture. Another example, like you can do it, it's for this for different files as well. This can capture en passant. It doesn't have to be this specific file that or column that I did the example on. What is a pawn promotion? So when the pawn reaches the end of the board on the very last rank, it's similar to checkers. If you ever play checkers, it's like king me. You can promote the pawn. Same for black. On either side, it would be on white's last rank that they can promote. So if the pawn ends up here, pawn promotion would be you can promote it to any piece other than a king, obviously. So most people promote to a queen, but there's like tactics to go with that. But for the most part, for beginners, I would say like basically always promote to a queen because it's the most powerful piece. Okay, so remember how I told you about the values, right? You always want to trade pieces that are equal or greater to your piece of value. So a lot of times when I play beginners, like I'll give you an example where they're right here. They have a knight out. I have a pawn, and like they guard their pawn, or sorry, I attack their knight with my pawn. They guard their knight with a pawn, and then we make a subsequent trade. Now remember, like I told you about the points, right? Like what are knights worth? What are pawns worth? Knights are worth 3 points, and pawns are worth 1 point. So in a way, when I trade my pawn that's worth 1 point for an opponent's knight, which is worth 3 points, I am now up points. Like I'm up material. I have an extra knight, and they only have one knight, which is stronger than a pawn. Um, for now, I mean, you can promote and stuff, but when we're talking about like immediate point conversion, like it's not worthwhile trading a knight for a pawn. So instead of defending it, you want to move it away so that you don't lose it. Oops. What's castling? Castling is something that's crucial to know in terms of playing the game and getting out of the early game. It's pretty confusing because there's some caveats to it. So I'll give you a basic setup and say like white can castle here. White can castle by moving their king towards their rook, only if the rook hasn't moved yet. So the king moves 2 squares towards that rook, and then the rook goes to the other side of the king. Now, I'm just going to move these pieces out of the way so that we can set an example. So the king can castle towards either rook, and it would still be the same for either way. So I just showed you the king side castle. This is the king side because there's only the king and queen side. The queen side would be this side, and the king side would be this side because it's like the side of the board with the queen or the king. It's just like halves of the board. That's how we think about it. So if you castle king side, it's like castling towards the king side rook. It'd be 2 squares, and then you move the rook over to the other side of the king. Same thing with the queen side. You move the king 2 squares over, and then you move the rook to this side. So technically, the rook moves more on this side, but you know that's part of the game. The caveats are that you can't have already moved the king or rook before on this castling. So if I move this rook before, like this, for some reason, like assuming that like the opponent also made some moves, I can't castle queen side anymore. I can only castle king side because these two haven't moved yet. So if this rook also moves, now I can't castle either way. But if the king also has moved before, let's say I do something like this, right? Or like, you know, dancing around. Now my king can't castle either way because I've already moved it. Castling is technically like a king move. Some more caveats for castling. I guess if I can, let's make some moves just to clear things out. Okay, so here, with the rules that I have explained already, you can technically castle. But now I'll share with you some caveats. Because the queen is attacking one of the castling squares, you cannot castle through an attack. So this is it would be illegal to castle here because you're moving the king here into the queen's line of fire. So you can't do that. You also can't castle into a check. A check is when you know, an opponent piece is attacking your king. That's a check. So you cannot castle into a check as well. Like remember how I said you move 2 squares and then move the rook over. In this case, you're castling into a check, so you can't do that. I think that's about it. I guess there's something special about the. I'll just eat some pieces here. Something special about the queenside castling, which would be like. Let's do this because this square is special. So you can castle this way. The rook can move into a line of fire. It's only the king that can't do that. So in this case, because castling queenside would be moving 2 over 1 2 and then moving the rook over, this would be a legal castle because the king doesn't move through the line of fire of the rook. I mean of their queen. It's only your rook. That makes sense, right? Yeah. Feel free to leave any comments in the video if you need any clarification or comments. Okay, now that we explained basically all of the rules and like movements, we can talk more about strategy. So there's 3 different stages to the game: early game, middle game, end game. Pretty basic. Early game is before you castle. So I just talked about castling and what it is, right? Middle game is when like after you've castled and the queens are still alive. And end game is when the queens are gone, they're dead. We traded them. Excuse me. Early game strategy, yeah. You want to use your pawns to control the center. The center is where your pieces want to be at because they control like central squares of the board and can control a lot of play. Um, you want to move your pieces only once, and you want to castle as soon as possible. This game is mainly about checkmating your opponent's king, right? So if you get your king out of the middle as soon as possible, you can have a much longer game and much more strategy, much more potential to have like tactics, stuff like that, rather than getting mated like really soon because you didn't castle your king. When I say move your pieces only once, I mean let's give an example of an opening. This is the Italian game, I believe. Um, so here I've already moved my knight and bishop out, and I moved them once. So now I want a castle like this, and now like the early game for me is completed, for white. Something to avoid doing is to like, because I moved the knight once already, move it out again, or the bishop. Let's take that move back, or the bishop out. Move one more time. Like, oh, I want to like trade this for some reason. You want to avoid doing that because it's just a waste of time. You want to just castle your king and get your king to safety, and then you can do that later on. Okay, middle game. I guess I should just set up a position so we can play. So the middle game, let me set it up. Just pretend. The middle game, you want to protect your pieces. You want to coordinate your pieces together and attack your opponent's pieces. I think all of those are obvious, what they mean. I guess I can elaborate some more on each of them if just to be complete. So protecting your pieces. There are this thing called loose pieces, and there's a saying called loose pieces drop off. Loose pieces are pieces that are not defended by anything. So let's move this bishop instead from here to here. Before here, it was defended by the pawn, right? But now it's not defended by anything. No pawn's defending it. The queen's not defending it. The knight hasn't been developed yet, so it's not defending it yet. Like if it was here, it could defend it. So this is a loose piece. Loose pieces usually there's potential for them to be lost for free because they're not protected by anything. So tactics can occur where you know you lose this piece for nothing, which is bad. I don't think there's a tactic here. I don't know if I can come up with one just off the top of my head, but let's say that uh, what would it be like here, here? Let's say, okay, yeah, like that. Okay. Let's say that this position occurs and I played this. This is a fork because I'm attacking 2 pieces at the same time. Now, because this piece is not defended, it'll drop off. Like there's no way for the queen to defend it as well because um, the queen would have to come here, which is taken by the knight. So it can't go there to defend the bishop, and going here would just lose the queen because you know the the pawn's attacking that. So this would be a tactic where like loose pieces drop off, you're gonna lose the bishop or the queen. So coordinating your pieces together, let me illustrate that point as well. So let me set up a position that's like common. Let's say something like this, right? Um, your pieces are controlling the center, which is good. They're protected. All the there's no hanging pieces, and the rooks are connected as well. Basically, at this point in the game, your pieces are developed, meaning that they moved away from their starting square. All except for this rook, which is fine. You can move that later. But basically, you have very active play because you've moved your pieces out from their starting position. That's very good. Generally, you want to develop your pieces so that they can actually come into the game, right? If all your pieces are still in the back row, um, like this for instance, and this is like trapped behind your pawn, then like they're not really active. You want your pieces to be like out and out here, and try to be like advancing, attacking your opponent's side of the board. Okay, yeah, coordinating pieces, knights can be linked. I talked about the rooks being linked, right? After you castle, and then the rooks are linked like this. Knights can be linked, like, I'll give you an example. Like this, these two knights are protecting each other. So if, for instance, like they trade knights for some reason, then one just replaces the other. They're pretty like they're like Masons in Werewolf. Like they're kind of like tag teaming. So that's super useful. Um, there's this thing called a battery as well. A battery is when like two pieces are coming down the same file or the same diagonal, same line, and they're like acting as like also like a tag team, kind of like pushing against each other or pushing each other forward and supporting each other. Let me give you an example. So this would be like a rook battery because like one rook is moving forward and the another rook is supporting right behind it. Um, this is a really well-known battery as well. Getting the queen into this rook battery. This is called Alyakin's gun, I think. I never said that out loud. But basically, it's super powerful because it's very rare in chess for you to get three pieces lined up in a battery. Usually, it's just like two, right? Like the queen and bishop, or the two rooks, or a rook and a queen. It's very rare to have three. So this is like there's a name for it. Okay, end game strategy. Let's say the queens are off the board, and then we traded some pieces, and some pawns are gone too. Um, let's say a set of rooks are gone. Maybe some knights as well. Let's just say these pawns are gone. Okay, yeah. So end game strategy. You want to promote your pawns, right? Like I told you before that, like once the pawn reaches the end of the board, let's say here, you're super close to promoting and you want to get another queen because the queen, like if you imagine this being a queen, it'd be super powerful. So at the end game when the queens are off, you want to find some play where you can push your pawns up and like get another queen because then your pieces will be OP. Um, Also, because there are less pieces on the board, you can actually move your king out here and it'll be relatively safe. Because there's no queens around, like, it's not. that easy to harass your opponent's uh it's not as easy to get your king harassed because yeah, less pieces, less pawns means more open squares and you can navigate around. Let me show you an example where it's super nice to have like hold on. Super nice to have an active king. So let's say I'm here, right? Let's say it's black to play. Black cannot come here. I can even move this one. Black cannot come here and stop this pawn from being promoted because my king is so active. I'm controlling these squares around around the king, and this pawn itself controls these squares. So I'm ready to queen next turn, and there's nothing black can do to stop it. Like black cannot come in at all. So that's why imagine like if the king was here, right, super far away, then the black king just comes in and even if I promote to a queen, they just take it. So that's no good. Um, you would want your king to be close as possible to your pawn so that it has a greater chance of promoting. Okay, that's it. Wow. Okay, I guess I've been talking a lot, but I like chess, so time flies. I'll give you some examples. I just listed a few. If you watched, what's that show called? Queen's Gambit. You'll know. You might have heard of Scholar's Mate. Scholar's Mate is like a four move. Is it four moves? One, two. I don't know, something like that. Four move checkmate where if your opponent doesn't really know what they're doing, they just get mated. I'll give you an example, right? Like here, 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 here. I'm threatening to mate here, right? And then they just play something like this. Then this is checkmate. The king has no more squares to go to, and this is like a battery with the queen and bishop, and yeah, it's just mate. So you don't want to do that, or you don't want that to happen to you. You can do that to other people. So easy way to defend is just like blocking with your knight, or like just any move that just like intercepts like one of these lines. Um, I guess another way of doing this is also like coming here, and in this case that wouldn't stop this because that would also be mate here. In order to stop that, you'd have to do something like this. Yeah, there are a lot of different variations you can use the internet to explore. The second recommendation or example that I have is doing e4 on your first move. I mentioned before in the early game you want to control the center. E4 is just one of the ways of doing that. You're contesting these squares in the center, right? You could technically play e3 and say like, oh, you're contesting the center like this too, but you want to control your opponent's center. That's better. Um, they also do this to do the same. And they all want to prevent you from playing d4, right? Like if they play something, you imagine if your opponent doesn't really play actively. Let's say like they play um, what is this, b6, then you can play d4, and you control these squares here, and that's super active, right? Now you control the center and you have a good position. So that's an example, playing e4, first move. Third example is playing d4. It's the same idea, right? If your opponent doesn't do something active, you can just play here and you control all these squares. All right, that's it. Hopefully you gotta have a good understanding of the different stages of a chess game, how the pieces move, some examples of what to do, and you'll have some ideas on how to play your games. Don't worry about playing perfect. No one plays perfect. it's not the point of the game. The point of the game is just to play the game, make some moves, have some good ideas, explore around, and just have fun with it. So I hope you enjoy. See ya.